Feston Kenda. I'm a Jesuit from Tanzania, a member of the Eastern African Province, and the director of the Jesuit Historical Institute in Africa.
So where does the story of JHIA begin?
It goes far back in 2009, and it's originally an idea of Father Adolfo Nicholás, our retired general. As the society was moving towards 2014, marking 200 years after the restoration of the society, Adolfo Nicholás felt that the story of the society in Africa is really not documented and therefore not well known. And he felt that the society needed to do something about that. And on top of that, he was also very convinced that the society could do something to help Africa interpret its own history. And he thought of a facility that could help that, an institution that would be helping Jesuits in Africa to know their own history, and also Africans in general to interpret their own history. And so those were his basic ideas behind the project of the Jesuit Historical Institute in Africa. Yeah.
And it's quite a unique place. In fact, let me call it a unique repository of its kind in Africa. How do you manage to be able to bring all these books that have an African aspect in them, just go out and collect those books? Or how do you even find those books in the first place?
As a historian myself, I'm quite passionate about collecting sources on African history. And I realized that there are a lot of sources, a lot of documents and published books that people have and would be very happy to deposit in a place in Africa where it will be safe, it will be treasured, preserved, and also made accessible to researchers. As far as I know, we have very few of those facilities on the continent. And so many people deposit their documents and books outside of the continent. And ever since we created this space and gave people, made people convinced or managed to persuade people that actually it will be safe to preserve their records and their books here, we have actually been somewhat overwhelmed really by the number of people both within Africa and outside Africa who are willing to donate their own collections and preserve it here. So I think the secret has been creating the space and persuade people that it's a safe place and that their collections will be valued and preserved and made accessible to other researchers. That has been a secret, and we have received a lot of donations, both from within Africa and from outside.
You're in the heart of Africa, in a city that I would say many academics or scholars, and looking even at where you are at the JHIA Institute of Peace and International Relations, a Jesuit university, and also proximity to the JHIA College. Are you seeing a significant increase in the need for a lot of African books in terms of research, and also in terms of people coming in to find out a little bit more on what you have, the collections that you have? And even aside from that, as well, students outside the Jesuit institutions, the two institutions that I've mentioned. What's the significance?
I think actually we are not even trying to create the need for this institute, the need for this kind of collection is already there. And in many ways, the Historical Institute in Africa, the Jesuit Historical Institute in Africa, is really responding to a scholarly need that is already there. For example, most of our university libraries around, they would have a limited budget, and for that reason, they would try to buy the latest book that they need for classroom purposes. Whereas the Historical Institute is dedicated purely to research, we dedicate a number of resources, a significant amount of resources, to look for older books, older material that are not available in other libraries in Africa. And so researchers, anybody studying any topic on Africa, would definitely find this collection extremely important. What has been happening so far is that people studying Africa, people studying African history, African cultures, religions, have to fly outside Africa to find records and information, mainly in Europe, but also in America. And I think the Historical Institute is slowly beginning to reverse that. And so our audience, actually our clientele, is not only made of Jesuits, and certainly not Jesuits at JHIA and the Peace Institute, but people actually researching Africa in Nairobi and from outside Kenya, and a number of students in universities around Nairobi, especially people studying masters and doctoral, researching for their doctoral thesis, find our collection extremely important and helpful for their work.
And have you moved the library from just being a room? Have you taken it or online? Is that digital space for JHIA?
Of course, everything these days has to be digitized or has to go digital. So, of course, we cannot digitize every book that we have. There are copyright issues and things like that. And also, our capacity at the moment is slightly limited. But we are looking forward to actually digitizing, especially the most rare books, old books that we have that are out of copyright laws. But also, what we have done is to make sure that our catalog is entirely online. So people can find out what we have, even if they cannot read the entire document, but at least they are aware that if they visited the Historical Institute, this is the kind of information they can find out. What we have done digitally is we have created the Africa Thesis Bank, because we have also realized that a lot of research on Africa happens within Africa and especially outside Africa. And we don't have a way of knowing who has researched on what kind of dissertations and theses are being produced in different universities, both within Africa and outside Africa. So the Africa Thesis Bank is our initiative really to try and collect all these dissertations that are being produced in different universities all over the world. And these are made available online. You can go online and find the information, and if you need us to make that available to you, you can directly contact the Historical Institute and we will process the information and make it accessible to you digitally. So we are taking steps along that direction. We are glad that actually we are meeting, we are reaching a global audience. We do receive requests from Africa and mainly from America, surprisingly, for the dissertations that we hold in the Africa Thesis Bank. And we hope that with time we will have more dissertations deposited in the bank, and we will be also able to help more people who need that kind of information.
Let's talk about some of those books you look at and you're like, I cannot believe this is in our possession. Any exceptional materials that you have that you feel, yes, this is good, that it's within our hands in Africa, an African material perhaps,
That's
or even
right.
a book, an
That's
artifact,
Yeah.
a piece of art.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk
We
about
actually have quite a lot of those, the kind of things that anybody who visits the Historical Institute, I can't but show them that we have this and that and that. And I could name a few. In terms of books, I'm very proud that we have in our possession an original copy of a catechism that was published, or rather written in Angola by a Jesuit, an Angolan-born Jesuit in 1660. And that's quite an old book, and to be able to have it here is quite significant, and we're very proud of that. We also have another catechism of the 18th century, that's 1700s, which is a translation of some works of Robert Bellarmine, Cardinal Robert Bellarmine, into Gaze and Arabic. And I'm very happy that we have this text in our possession, because clearly a text that was produced for Ethiopia. And so you can see Jesuits were always busy trying to convert Ethiopians into Catholicism. And that text is evidence of the kind of efforts that Jesuits were making at that time to produce texts for Ethiopia. And so we are very happy to have these kind of material here, and so many other old catechisms in different African languages. They are really treasures that we hold very, very, very dearly. In terms of artifacts of material culture, if you wish, we are proud custodians of the chalice of Teilhard de Chardin, and that's something quite valuable. Teilhard de Chardin was a very famous Jesuit, and to be able to have the chalice that we are told and we are certain that actually he used it on the very last day of his life here on earth. And so to be able to be custodians of that chalice, that really is important to us. So such things, plus so many other things. We have a number of parchments, these are manuscripts from Eritrea, which were given to us by a woman from Eritrea who has collected these for years, preserved them, and found this place good enough and safe enough for her to deposit them here. So yes, we have such things that really make our collection impressive and extremely valuable.
From your description, some of those items that you've mentioned are through the support of people across the world.
Yes.
What's your message to somebody out there who feels like they can be part of this mission of preserving African material?
I truly believe that nearly everybody who wants to can play a part in keeping this place going and creating it into the center for African research that we want to make it. We hope that in the future, anybody researching Africa, anybody studying Africa, will consider the Jesuit Historical Institute in Africa as the first place you need to go to and find the information. And so my appeal to anybody is to support us in whatever way possible. And there are many ways. For example, there are people with a book or two or a collection of books on Africa, and sometimes they wonder where they can put this in a place of safety, in a place where they will be preserved and used. And I appeal to those people to really trust that the Historical Institute has the capacity to accept such kind of material, preserve them, and make them accessible to other researchers. As we collect older books and older material, we also look forward to collecting newer ones. And so we appeal to people who publish books about Africa on any subject to actually donate just one copy. And this goes to publishers themselves and to authors. Just donate a book to the Historical Institute. And if you're not a publisher and you're not an author, you could buy a book, just one or two or 10, or depending on your capacity. Buy a book and gift it to the Historical Institute. So those are ways that I think people can support us. We have huge financial needs this place has to run, and we entirely depend on donations. And again, I would appeal to anybody who can to support us with whatever little they can. When we started, our motto was haba na haba hujaza kibaba. Little by little, the bowl is full. And so we do appeal to people to donate whatever they can, even financially, to help us sustain this mission and grow it to its destiny, really. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Father Fester.